Hey there, amnestic brains and robot bodies. I'm the Comics Kid 2099, and I'm here to talk about an episode of Superman the Animated Series. Today, I'll be talking about the Season 2 episode Action Figures. So if you haven't seen the episode, go watch it before I get into the plot synopsis right now. Metallo, who we last saw fall into the ocean, emerges onto an island with no memory of his past. He saves a child from a minor eruption from an active volcano on the island, and she and her brother call him Steel Man, after Superman, the Man of Steel. Metallo later saves a truck driver who is about to fall off a cliff, because apparently this almost entirely deserted island has two emergencies that need a superhero within minutes of each other, and the truck driver goes and tells the world that he was saved by a robot. This brings Lois Lane and Superman to the island, just as Metallo starts to remember who he is. A fight emerges as the volcano erupts for good, and Metallo ends up getting caught in the cooled magma, repeating his name so that he doesn't forget it again. So I guess the first thing to address is, how long was Metallo in the water? Metallo's previous appearance was in The Way of All Flesh, which aired in September 28th, 1996. This episode aired on September 20th, 1997. Would a year really be enough to make Metallo forget who he was and everything about himself? Even trapped at the bottom of the ocean with no human contact at all, I don't see how that would be enough to make him completely forget everything about himself. This kind of plot where Metallo remembers nothing is kind of neat, but it might have worked better if the episode had been willing to get a little weird and be set, say, 40 years in the future instead of in the present day. Of course, the people making the show were never going to do something like that, because then anything that happens in the 40 years in the future timeline, they would be stuck with it. Plus, maybe they weren't willing to commit to having Superman be nearly immortal like he is often portrayed in the comics, and like he is eventually portrayed in the DC animated universe in Batman Beyond. So I guess doing an episode where Metallo emerges from the ocean a few decades later might not have worked, but it may have worked better than him losing all of his memories in just a year. And sure, I guess it's possible that more than a year has passed since his last appearance in the show. In Batman the Animated Series, we once had 6 months pass between a two-part episode. So it's possible, but it still doesn't account for the amount of time that I would think would be needed for him to forget everything like he does here. Beyond that, this episode is certainly filled with a lot of contrivances, and some of them are kind of unavoidable. We have to have the episode take place on a volcanic island so that we can end ambiguously with Superman unsure if Metallo is still alive, just like in The Way of All Flesh. But it has to be different than last time. We can't just put him in the ocean again like we did before, so volcanic island it is. And that's fine. But then the volcano just happens to erupt right when Metallo arrives on the island, and then the truck driver just happens to be the worst driver in the world right when Metallo arrives on the island. And just what was this truck driver doing on a nearly deserted island? I guess we don't know how many people live on the island, but Bobby, the boy who befriends Metallo, acts like there is almost nothing on the island when his sister says that she will go and buy her own action figures. And when we see this island being evacuated, it certainly seems like the only people on the island are the scientists studying the volcano and their families. So was the truck driver delivering supplies to the scientists? Why? The volcano is about to blow, and Bobby and Serena's dad seems to know this. So why take on new supplies now? And then, of course, Metallo just happens to get all of his memories back right when Superman and Lois come investigating the robot who saved the truck driver. Any one of these things by themselves would not have been too bad, but lumped all together, it makes for many contrivances just for this particular story to happen the way the storytellers need it to happen. I do like the idea of Metallo possibly becoming a hero when he doesn't know who he is. Is this an aspect of his personality that was there before he became a terrorist working for Lex Luthor, or is it completely divorced from the persona of John Corbin? We don't know, because we don't know anything about John Corbin, and unfortunately, this episode doesn't do anything to explore the nurture versus nature idea, and whether Metallo's heroics are part of who he is, or just a happy accident because him saving both Serena and the truck driver are really just there to further the plot, and aren't there to be discussed as interesting thematic ideas. Unfortunately, it sounds like I didn't really enjoy this episode very much. I've seen this episode a handful of times before, and I've always liked it then, but whenever I start to actually think about it, it falls apart pretty quickly. But what did you guys think of the episode and of my review? Let me know in the comments below, and in the meantime, I'll be back next week with some other videos. Catch you later.